So, is Legends ZA the worst game in the franchise's history? No, it's far from it. Now, is it the best game they've ever made? No, it's probably not that either. At the time of writing this, the game has been out for around 10 days. It's received some mixed reviews, but I had an absolute blast playing the game. I mean, sure, some of the graphics, like the infamous windows, could be improved, or add a little bit more variation in building designs and make the game just slightly more visually appealing. But ultimately, my rebuttal boils down to the fact that these aren't the reasons I, or pretty much anyone for that matter, play Pokemon in the first place. So much of this melts away once you become fixated on the core gameplay loop of just catching and battling and enjoying what the game has to offer. Should the games be given larger budgets to improve upon aspects of quality and aid in the production process, to either just simply speed it up or improve some of these visuals or things that fans have been complaining about for the last few years, especially with the absolute mess that was Scarlet and Violet. Given the sheer scale of the franchise, we really shouldn't be speaking about budgets of 10 million and below, considering Call of Duty has an average around 50 times that for every game, and they're a completely annual release. We can always ask for more on that front, but there are also counter-arguments. Everything swings in roundabouts. You see, some people might make the argument that the smaller team allows for more creative direction that gives the game their clear identity. There's no real universal rule for this kind of thing. I personally have my gripes with the game, especially in regards to shiny hunting. I mean, there's a complete lack of real method hunting in the game. The only way to do it is more of an abuse of how the game spawns Pokemon and saves them, and due to the spamming and botting of fast traveling, the hunting methods don't really feel engaging or as rewarding as in previous games, which does leave me slightly concerned for the longevity and replayability of the game. I acknowledge all of these as issues, and I'll discuss some more critiques throughout the video, much like I acknowledge that Scarlet and Violet was plagued with its performance issues upon release, and I want to be clear, Game Freak has earned the right to be criticised for these. However, we should acknowledge though that they're clearly listening and beginning to do the right thing. They've been slowing the roll of the monstrous media machine that is Pokemon in order to facilitate higher quality games and give the fans the product they really deserve. But beyond doing exactly this, pointing out what should be improved, there is no point to harp on these issues and spout negativity and hate, because some of the stuff I've seen online is quite frankly obscene. I like to live my life from a utilitarian perspective. I judge the value of an action based on the overall amount of happiness and utility it puts into the world. Complaining and harassing people because some windows aren't pretty or because the battle system is different to the traditional formula is pointless. Ultimately, video games are designed as a pastime and a method of escapism to enjoy away from the stresses of the outside world. Somebody isn't going to come home from work and have their day drastically improved by watching a video praying for the downfall of Game Freak, for flat windows, and heaven forbid they try something new. And with all that being said, I'm going to hop off my soapbox and tell you why I absolutely love this game. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the world. From the second you step off the train and onto the streets of Lumiose, you're met with all kinds of fun details like the billboards filled with glades and gardoirs, or even the insane references to the real-life French subway signs translated into the Pokemon world. This, combined with your luggage immediately being stolen by a Pancham, immediately thrusts you into a state of immersion as you begin your quest. There's no mistaking, we ain't in Kansas anymore. We're in Lumiose, baby! The city is fun to explore with racine construction scaffolding, encouraging you to look for screws to earn rewards, as well as some rarer Pokemon, exclusively available on the rooftops. I was so excited early in my playthrough as I stumbled into a Horlucha, one of my favourite Pokemon in the game, so early on thanks to my parkour skills. This, combined with the interactive elements of the world like the webs connecting the rooftops, piles of sludge and rocks to clear, as well as being able to smash and collect Mega Shards, made exploring Lumiose throughout the playthrough feel very rewarding. I must admit, I wish there were more interior areas in the game. All the stores are just access points to menu screens, much like in Scarlet and Violet, and there are only about 5 buildings you can enter in the whole game. To the game's credit, you have so much to do in the outside world and to explore that it keeps you focused on the task at hand, and it's not really something I considered whilst playing through the game or something I felt like I was missing, but for the sake of immersion, it would have been nice to have. Speaking of the shops though, with this game taking place in Lumiose, based on Paris, it really built on the foundations of character customization laid down in X and Y, as it features the most robust character customization we have received yet to date. No two avatars I see look the same, bringing me on to the next feature I want to praise, that of course being the camera functionality. The ability to take pictures with your Pokemon is far better than the one we had in Scarlet and Violet. As well, the cafe and bench features allow you to spend more time bonding with your Pokemon. The community has been getting super creative, and it's great to see so many people enjoying this self-expression all over my timeline. The game makes a real effort to sort of try and sell you on this fantasy and help with this cohesive immersion that I really think the game pulls off. The world building is clearly one of the game's key strengths, enhanced by the abundance of side quests. I'm yet to engage in too thoroughly because that's something that I plan on doing a separate video on, but there are all sorts of absolute gems that add so much context and add to this building and sense of immersion. In Black and White, who would have considered the economic implications of Trubbish inhabiting a city and their scent scaring away patrons of a cafe? Not me! Taking out the trash is peak Pokemon. We have all kinds of other fun similar disruptions that add to the narrative of the struggle to coexist between people and Pokemon. Some of the coolest side quests in the games are the ones that allow you to get one-off encounters with each of the Kalos starters to take with you on your journey. This exclusivity, combined with the story told in these side quests, give each of these starters their own personality and makes them much more unique. They almost become characters in their own right. They have a backstory much like a fated encounter Ash would have in the anime, with Pokemon such as Charmander or is it Gengar. You have the Froakie, who's a mischievous and cocky parkour master. You have Chespin, who's stubborn, hard-headed battler. And lastly, you have the sick Fennekin, who you get to take on an arc from this sick little fox to being one of your best buds. Other side quests add utility in activating fast travel spots or holovators to access new parts of the map. Some adds to character story, like the camera-ups entrepreneur that flesh out otherwise generic NPCs. Much like after you finish the game, you get to re-encounter our little baggage thief who's decided to put the skill to good use and started a baggage courier service. And some others are just downright cute, like my favourite Spooper side quest in the museum. Speaking of which, we have all sorts of cool Easter eggs and lore nuggets in the museum up in the north part of the map, littered in lore from history and beyond. This world building is what I love about these games. If that's the kind of thing that interests you, I would suggest you check out a video which I've linked in the description with a full breakdown from Lorekeeper Toby and the Amaze Dragon. The next part of the game I want to discuss is the characters. In my opinion, this game has one of the strongest core casts of characters we've ever had in a Pokemon game. They might not all have the same emotional weight and depth as our companions in Scarlet and Violet, like Arven and Penny, but they certainly pack a lot of personality. Zoe, Lida, is a very fun character, characterized by her love of dancing, and having to carry her through the rogue mega battles. It's a great character moment when she's able to finally evolve her Pokemon to face off against the terrifying Mega Starmie. Naveen is great. He has a strong visual identity thanks to his aspirations in fashion, as well as providing comic relief through his fanaticism, or canaticism. What did I say in the game? Canaticism? I think that's it. You get my idea. And most importantly, being the voice of reason, standing up against the true villain of the story. In all seriousness, beyond her seemingly suspect cooking skills, Tawny is a great character, or Urbane if you chose the female character, with plenty of humour, good morals, and mystery with the search for her mother, finishing on a bittersweet note of her reuniting with her estranged grandmother Jet. All of these characters have purpose, and many of these compliments can be extended to the wider cast. For the sake of succinctness, I won't be delving too far into all of them here, a lot of which comes down to the dialogue and the visual design of these characters that make them all unique, as well as being very well suited to their respective partner Pokemon. Perhaps the most interesting of this wider cast is Corbeau. When you meet him, he's this looming figure of a loan shark, head of this mafia organization known as the Rust Syndicate, who wants to leverage you as muscle for his nefarious needs. But the more time you spend with him, you get to see, in reality, he's not so bad after all. He's an anti-hero who uses his somewhat questionable business practices to try and help out vulnerable people in the city. An important lesson to kids playing the game: you should never judge a book by its cover. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to my personal favourite character, Ivor, who for some reason I imagine having a really thick Russian accent. He's literally All Might.
I am here.
I really enjoyed his wacky shenanigans and is a perfect example of how the game doesn't take itself too seriously and adds a bit of whimsy. He is incapable of using a phone because he's too strong, which you might think is just a dumb plot device so we chase down his sister, until you literally see the man break down a steel gate with his bare hands. Even the NPCs hide plenty of cool discussions about their motivations and the wider Pokemon world, like Leon having lost the title in Galar, or Ingo finally making his way back somehow to Unova and restarting the battle subway with Emmett. This is so much to discover, and I look forward to delving even more into it now that I've finished the postgame. These characters really help contribute to the story and make it a really enjoyable experience. Like I mentioned earlier, you have your bag stolen the moment you set off in the city, and this creates a sense of distrust in everyone, leaving you to progress through the entire plot, questioning every character and moral. We have no idea throughout most of the plot who or what is causing all of these rogue megas and all this disruption in the city. We have no idea who or what is behind it, and why it might be happening in the first place. The main bulk of the story consists of you attempting to strive towards rank A in the Z to A Royale, Lumios's very own nocturnal fight club. Along the way, we take on notable trainers like Vinny, Kanari, and Grisham in rank up matches that act as the substitutes for gym leader battles in this game. As the plot progresses, we discover that the tournament was created in the first place in order to find the strongest Mega Evolution user, in order to deal with a mysterious threat to the city hidden in Lumiose Tower. Later, we discover that this is Ange, a counterpart to the ultimate weapon that AZ created in an attempt to give life and repent for his sins. This had remained unused, but had activated in response to the misfiring of the ultimate weapon during the events of X and Y 5 years prior. This is what had driven massive Pokemon to the city and sparked the emergence of Rogue Mega Evolution, which became boss battles we must subdue throughout the story. Throughout all this, we are met with a mysterious Pokemon Zygarde and his companion L, who are also aware of this emerging threat and work together to gather all its cells in order to prepare to combat the danger and reinstate order. All of this eventually culminates in a climax where the machine finally begins to overflow and causes massive destructive Rogue Mega Evolution that would eventually destroy the city without our intervention. Tawny attempts to channel the power using AZ's Mega Floette. Meanwhile, we have to rendezvous with Zygarde to stop Ange once for all. Overall, this sequence of battling through the city is really fun and does a great job of emphasizing the stakes, as pretty much every character comes together to assist you. It feels like a true culmination of your journey, and you see the profound impact you've had on the city and the people in it. Throughout the story, there's quite a lot of humour integrated, with the climax being no exception, as Corbo and his Rust Syndicate literally form a human ladder for you to climb up. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Once you finally do reach Zygarde and start the final boss battle, you fight alongside him to take on the tower. I thought the cutscenes and the Zygarde component of the battle was handled really well and was pretty cool, if I'm being honest. But I can't help but feel as though the main battle against the plant sentries felt somewhat underwhelming and disinteresting. I have no clue how you really handle it any better. You can't exactly fight the Eiffel Tower with a crocodile or a pig, but I'm sure there was something they could have done to make it a bit more interesting, maybe fighting off some more Mega Minions. Complaints aside, I was pretty happy with the plot, but I can't lie, once the credits rolled, I thought AZ was safe, despite my predictions and the foreshadowing throughout the story. I was so caught off guard with how it hit me emotionally, considering I didn't really care for the character. Overall, I feel like the story is pretty good, not quite on the level of Scarlet and Violet, but far better than what we'd become accustomed to from the Pokemon franchise. However, it did outperform it in another aspect I'm eager to discuss, and that of course being the gameplay. Now this, in my opinion, is where the game truly shines. The new battle mechanics are awesome. I love these new action-based battles compared to our traditional turn-based ones. Each move has a cooldown timer, meaning we're encouraged to fully leverage all of our moves rather than just spamming the same one over and over again. Protect and other similar dodge moves feel very powerful and useful, and it adds a lot more thought behind the move selection, with priority moves being more useful to finish off opponents or to catch a trainer off guard. It even adds value to having two similar moves, like Bulldoze and Earthquake. You can either alternate between the two powerful stab moves on an Excadrill, or instead you could opt to give it more coverage. It's entirely up to you. There are still some kinks to iron out, like the Pokemon pathing and the way they move around the battlefield. It feels slightly awkward the way Pokemon will run to the player character to use ranged attacks, or when you opt to use a physical move, they might unfortunately just get stuck on a ledge or another piece of the environment. But for a first attempt for real-time battles, I feel like it's an amazing starting point. When I first played through Scarlet and Violet, I enjoyed my playthrough without fighting any of the trainers because it felt like they're often slow and monotonous, with my attention drifting as I just take a few minutes to just mash A and get through this random NPC battle. Instead, in ZA, you can't really do that. Battling is at the core of the game. In order to progress, you will need to accumulate enough points for rank up tickets. And the way these battles work, you need to be playing in active mode rather than passive mode. You can also pick up bonus challenges to help earn points quicker and earn more money, which adds another dimension to these battles and changes your approach to each battle and helps each time you enter a battle zone feel fresh. The game keeps you constantly engaged, and this made for a way more fun experience than the old format in my opinion. I have already acquired the shiny charm, having completed over 1,000 battles in a week, and I honestly didn't mind it that much. I couldn't even begin to imagine doing that with turn-based battles. That being said, not everyone is a shiny hunter accustomed to repeating actions thousands of times, so the game is designed quite well to break up these ZA royales with the rogue mega missions. Each boss battle was uniquely designed to offer a new challenge as they would target both you and your Pokemon, with each of these new bosses bringing new attacks and different mechanics to their boss fight. You have to dodge in different ways and learn patterns for each battle, which makes it interesting and enjoyable rather than getting boring after a few times around the block. To the point where the only blackout during the game came against a Mega Barbaracle of all things. For crying out loud, look at the thing. If you get complacent, you get punished. And that's great. Speaking about boss battles, in the post-game, you have to catch both Xerneas and Yveltal before taking on Zygarde. And my god, this was so difficult. In my opinion, it was far more difficult than the boss fight against Arceus in PLA. Maybe not quite as difficult as the Volo one, but it took me a few attempts and I really enjoyed the challenge. Especially as Zygarde now has a Mega and is this absolute force of nature, it feels like you've truly earned the right to train it after finally conquering the boss fight. Moving into more general mechanics, I love the way you transition into fights in this game. It feels so seamless. I love that you can knock out Pokemon to stun them and still catch them with the final Pokeball. I really hope it gets translated into the traditional games as well. I must say though, in regards to catching Pokemon, the ball physics themselves feel like a bit of a step backwards when compared to PLA, but I suppose this may have been some sort of conscious effort to try and usher you towards battling the Pokemon instead of just catching them outright, as battling is the core focus of this game. The last mechanic I want to discuss is the movement and the traversal. I really enjoyed the Rotoglide feature and the combat roll, and how these were leveraged within the obstacle courses as a fun or interactive puzzle and making the rooftop exploration fun. I understand that the confines of the city, they might not have wanted us to have ride Pokemon like we did in PLA, as this would probably trivialize the scale of the city. I feel like they did a great job of making up for this with the abundance of fast travel points, with the wild zones, Pokemon centers, and cafes to help you get around without just simply walking everywhere. My main gripe with this is that there's no way to traverse the waterways around the map. The amount is limited, but with no way to cross some of the rivers in the wild zones, you're forced to put your Pokemon out on dinghies as you watch them from the sidelines. It does feel kind of jarring and out of place, but due to the limited occurrence of these issues, it's quite small in the grand scheme of things. Before moving on to my closing thoughts, I just wanted to briefly speak on the Pokedex. We have a total of 230 Pokemon in the base game, which is a pretty small amount, narrowly less than the 242 we had in Legends Arceus. Despite this fact, I really don't feel like the game felt repetitive or like we had a lack of Pokemon to choose from, and that is a massive credit to the deck selection and the intentions behind it. We have access to 49 returning Megas as well as 24 new ones, excluding Delphox and Chestnut, giving us a total of over 70 Mega Evolutions, meaning of these 230 Pokemon, somewhere in the region of 100 unique evolution lines. Such a large proportion of the Pokedex has access to Mega Evolution, and the rest are comprised of fan favourites like the Evolutions, or Pokemon like the Elemental Monkeys who we haven't seen feature in a game in about a decade. So pretty much every catch in the game feels like a potentially exciting addition to your team. All killer, no filler. I'll park my thoughts on the Pokemon there for now, as I intend on having a separate discussion about the new Mega designs in a separate video. So, what do I feel about the game? Going into the game, I felt very weird. Obviously, learning about the game 18 months or so ago, and then being starved of content for so long, I was starting to worry that I'd raised my expectations far too high for the game to actually meet them. Going through the first couple hours of the tutorial, I was worrying this concern might have become a reality. However, once I was let off the leash and got to discover the rich world with all these fun characters, many of which I've not even discussed. The battles that only get better with time as you unlock new Pokemon and new moves, and there's opportunities to explore the city opens up to you. The game really comes into its own and actually ended up exceeding my expectations. The story has all kinds of fun moments. Never as a Pokemon game made me laugh, feel challenged, triumphant, intrigued, as well as excited, with great moments for fans like the return of Lysander and the reveal of new Megas. It even made me feel somewhat sad as the credits rolled, we said our farewells to AZ, and a little disappointed my adventure was over. Yes, the game absolutely has its issues. It is far from perfect, but I think it's my favourite experience I've ever had playing through a Pokemon game for the first time. And it makes me so excited to see what the next game has in store for us. I really hope that some of the negative discourse doesn't impede on people's ability to enjoy the game, because I do think it's a really worthwhile experience. I think people should be entitled to critique the game all they like, as long as it's respectful. And I also think people should be entitled to enjoy the game as much as they want. With Pokemon Champions, Pokopia, and an inevitable reveal for Gen 10 just on the horizon, I actually feel more optimistic about Pokemon than perhaps ever. I cannot wait to see what's in store, and I really hope that the whole community gets to enjoy this time as we usher in the new year with the 30th anniversary, and hopefully a celebration for all the franchise has to offer. So with all that being said, make sure you comment down below what your experience was like playing the game, who your favourite characters are. I'm very interested to find that out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to find out when I release some more ZA content. I'm working on a few experimental pieces in the background, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And until next time, guys, peace out.